But the question I want to ask you today, whether you're on the program or not, is, do you feel like you're wasting time or money? Do you actually feel like at the moment you've got a leaky tap? Maybe you feel like you've spent a lot of time doing different activities, or maybe you feel like you spent a lot of time, and money as well doing events, or even maybe doing courses, but you've got nothing to show for it. If that's you and you're watching the replay or you're watching live, I want to know, because I do feel like a lot of us have wasted time, even me. If you are in the program, you'll see on my video from day one, I personally have wasted time. That's for sure, in my business. Not as much this year, but definitely in previous years, I've wasted a lot of time. And so I actually get how frustrating it can be when you're actually in business and you're not seeing results, but you are spending a lot of time or you're spending a lot of money and you're not actually seeing the outcomes you want. Now, if that resonates with you, what I want you to do is let me know. You can send me a DM if you want, or you could just tell me a bit later. The main thing is, I want to qualify, whether you're watching live or on the replay, whether or not you've experienced this at any time. Now, hopefully, because we're in July, you haven't experienced this recently, because July is obviously the 7th month of the year. So we don't really want to have too many people, certainly not within my community anyway, spending time or money on things that are not necessarily yielding any results. So I'm going to go into where I'm at, and I really want you to understand the rationale behind this particular live. Time and money are two things that you absolutely need if you want to grow your business. If you want to do well with marketing, if you want to do well with even social media, even advertising, even doing print, even doing something as basic as a membership group, you've got to have access to time and money. And me personally, I have built my business over the last 29 plus years, and I've actually done quite a lot of work with business owners, companies, individuals, even people that are thinking of starting a business, to help them to understand and qualify what it is they're doing in their business, right? So I actually know that many of us do spend a lot of time on activities that don't benefit us. And I want you to know this evening, there's lots of ways that you can actually get around that. Okay, now the first thing I want to share with you is, in terms of my credentials, I've been doing branding and marketing now for nearly 30 years. I say nearly 30 years because next year it will be exactly 30 years. But my journey so far has really been an involvement of coaching, doing, live training, running an agency. I've got a book as well, so I'm an author. And I also coach in other people's communities. But for the last year and a half or so, I've worked mainly on contracts within other organizations, coming on board, doing something for the CEO or the leader of that organization or the team, and then off I scoot onto the next project. But in terms of, business, I want you to know that if you're a small business owner, it's not unusual for you to feel like some of your days are unproductive. If you're a CEO, it's not unusual for you to feel like, oh, I'm doing a lot and I'm not seeing any results. In fact, small business owners typically lose about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day doing unproductive tasks, doing things like opening 20 tabs and only getting 2 of those things done, right? Context switching, distractions, making phone calls, prioritizing tasks that are not related to growing your business. And that can actually add up to more than 3 weeks that you've lost in a year. Now, I know for some of you, that's not a concern. You're thinking, oh, whatever, I enjoy it. I'm not really bothered by this fee. But let me just tell you something. If you've got 3 weeks to lose in a year, do you know how that equates when it comes to like looking at your, let's say, annual leave? Because if you're in a job right now, you already know that 3 weeks of annual leave is a lot. 3 weeks of annual leave. If someone said to you, you can take off 3 weeks of annual leave. Here you go, V. Take off 3 weeks of annual leave. I'd be like, wow, 3 weeks. Okay, I'm down. So I want to share with you that if you are someone who is, if you know in your heart that you are spending, an hour and a half a day doing unproductive tasks, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're hopping literally on different things, and it's not really making sense in terms of what you're doing isn't really adding up to anything that you can quantify, to anything that you can qualify, then that quantifying and that qualifying is very, very important. Because you need to understand whatever it is you're doing should be giving you results. And I know that might sound like the typical thing that you hear from coaches, but I've been coaching now for years. And one thing I would tell you is I see it time and time again. If you feel like it's just you, it's not. There are a lot of business owners who do not plan a thing. There's no consistency, there's no routine, there's nothing there. It's literally just executing. In fact, I know of business owners, and I won't call names because that would be very unprofessional, but I know of business owners who spend a lot of time, quite literally, just plugging away, posting on Instagram, plugging away, doing lives, doing exhibitions, going along and doing podcasts. And if I'm honest, there's nothing to show. When I've asked them, there's nothing to show. In fact, this week I spoke to a gentleman who's got an absolutely solid business. He's all the way in the Midlands, and he's come down to London. And he said to me, V, I had a lot of business up in the Midlands, but I'm finding that I'm spending a lot of time online and I'm not seeing any results, and I'm trying to target people in London. Well, needless to say, I gave him a few tactics and strategies on the call that we had to help him. But I share that to say, if it's you as well, you're not alone. If you're someone who's currently struggling and you feel like, do you know what, this isn't working, I need to do better, then this is why I want you to understand that there are things you can do differently. And I'm going to touch on this very briefly today, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Marketing Momentum Club, which you're welcome to join if you would like 30 days of support from me. So if you are falling into that category of being a business owner that doesn't plan, you lack consistency, I'm guessing, right? I am guessing that you probably are feeling a little bit flustered, overwhelmed. So I'm going to give you some tips today that I know will help you. And I'm going to give you some ideas that I'm quite sure will help you to improve the way in which you're showing up. All right? Now, first of all, we want to work out, like, why are you wasting time? What are you wasting time on? Are you wasting time on webinars? Are you wasting time because you're consuming too much content? Are you wasting time going along to lots of events? Because I know some of you are. Are you wasting time perhaps doing too much, let's say, artwork on Canva? What do you feel you're wasting time on? What do you feel you're wasting time on? Because the thing is, if you can identify what you're wasting time on, that will massively help you to shift in the way in which you spend your time. So if you know you're watching lots of webinars, or you know that you're doing a lot in terms of, let's just say, going to events, then we need to be reducing that, right? We need to be looking at ways in which you can actually improve your time management. We need to be looking at apps. We need to be considering, the way in which you spend your time. And if necessary, you may need to, keep a log, as some of you will do when you're working with me for the 30 days. You may need to keep a log, because a lot of business owners are literally sitting there week after week, creating content, publishing content. And do you know that even though we're creating that content and publishing content, there's nothing to show for it? And that for me is really heartbreaking, because I actually know that a lot of you have subscribed to different tools. A lot of you are, having meetings here, there, and everywhere. You're part of communities, and actually you're paying for marketing tools and communities that you underuse, that are draining your budgets, right? And you're not maximizing the value. And so we're now, way past halfway through the year. We've got to do better. We've got to look at what you could do in your business to work smarter and not harder. We've got to think smart, okay? So if you know that you fall into some of the categories that I've mentioned, let's talk about this. Because we know that time is being wasted, but what about the money? Some of you are wasting money boosting posts. Yes, it looks good, it feels great, but how many of those posts are actually yielding results? Some of you have done a photo shoot. Some of you have done a website. Some of you are, going out and doing speaking gigs. And as I said to someone that I spoke to yesterday, if you are speaking to people regularly and, they are saying to you, I want you to come on my podcast, I want you to come to my event, I want you to speak to my community, you've got to really qualify after you've done that speaking engagement, whether it's a podcast, community chat, speaking engagement. One, did you get paid for it? because that's what we're about. We're about getting paid now. If you're in business, you've been in business a while, you should be getting paid for speaking. You should also be getting paid for opportunities as they are presented to you. So always qualify what it is you're doing. Also, a lot of us are part of membership groups or even subscribing to apps that are, wasting money. I can tell you now, I've wasted probably in the last 3 years lots of money on courses which haven't really helped me because I've not implemented in them. So you're not alone. If you're in that cramp, you're not alone, okay? You got to be able to work out what activities have actually helped you get clients. And recently, in my Instagram channel, I put out a survey and I said to people, look, let me know. Let me know. Are you actually doing activities that are getting you clients? Do you know where your last 10 clients came from? And that's a question I'm going to ask you today. Do you know where your last 10 clients came from? Have you even had 10 clients this year? Because if you've got multiple streams of income, then obviously you're good. You can pull clients from different streams of income. However, if you've only got one business, what I would say to you is you probably want to think about what it is you are doing that is working and what it is you are doing that is not working. Because ultimately you want things to work, right? You want whatever you're doing to work. So if you're wasting time and money on marketing, obviously there's the 30-day program that I know would help you if you become part of the Marketing Momentum Club. However, outside of that, you can still do things on your own. You can still look at your activities. You can still look at your budget. You can still think about, how much did I spend on this event? What did I get back? When I spoke at this speaking engagement, how many leads did I generate? Yeah? I spent 14 hours this week doing social media. What came back from it? And as wild as these questions might sound a little bit random, right? I want you to know something. 80% of daily work time is often spent on low value activities, which means you're only left with about 20% for the outcome driven tasks. And this is why it's so important for business owners to think about how you're spending your time and your money. Yeah? So what I want you to do is to think about how you spent your time and money since January or since whenever you started your business, and just be honest with yourself, right? Be honest with yourself. I want you to complete a review of how much time you've spent and how much money you've spent on promotional activities. And I want you to share with me, you can do that via, private chat or via a DM or an email. I want you to share with me what's working and perhaps what's not working. Okay? I'm going to put into the chat my Instagram handle. And I'm going to say to you that if you are someone that is feeling stuck, remember this, right? Give someone 6 hours to chop down a tree and they'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And when we talk about working smart, to some people, they'll think, spending 4 hours sharpening an axe when you've only got 6 hours to chop down an entire tree might sound like a waste of time, but actually it's a smart move, right? You think about this logically. And some of us in our businesses are actually spending a lot of time posting, sharing, creating, recording. We're spending hours doing that every week, and we're not even looking at our analytics. We're not even considering what we're doing. So if that's you and you know that you're in August right now, you're feeling a little bit stranded, you need some support, drop me a line. Let's have a conversation, right? During August, you'll have the opportunity to work with me for 30 days. And prior to that, you will also have access to a complimentary coaching program at no cost to you, where you can actually review your brand and marketing, or you can do a visibility course. You get to choose. All right. Now, this is really for a business owner, yourself, if it's you, who might be stuck, who might be challenged, who knows they need the help, who's exhausted from doing all the things. And if that is you, I would definitely recommend you get in touch. I'm going to be back tomorrow, all right, at 8:30 UK time. So set your alarm. I'll be back here on YouTube. And you can let me know what you thought of the video. You can let me know whether or not you've got any use from what I've shared, if it's made you think, if a light bulb moment's happened. And of course, if you're doing the program with me, if you're part of the Marketing Momentum Club, and you're actually doing the program with me at the moment, then make sure you check your emails, because there will be daily emails that are proper full-on training between now and Friday, and we can have a conversation in depth about what it is you're planning to do for the rest of July and then going into August. So take care, and I will speak to you soon. Have a fantastic rest of the week. See you tomorrow. That's Tuesday at 8:30 for day 2 of this series.